when you can believe in yourself and that vision for what it can create, harness some type of energy, whether it's from the dark side or however you want to harness it, make that a driving component. Where, look, I don't know anything about this, but I'm not afraid to tackle it head on.
Came up from the bottom to the top. And the young is gonna never stop. And he always punching in the clock. In the clock.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it. So I am, I don't even know where to start. So a lot of different layers to me. I dropped out of high school at 16, joined the military at 17, ended up getting emancipated, kicked out of my mom's house. So I joined the Army, did 3 tours, Egypt, Iraq, and Afghanistan, ended up getting blown up on my 3rd tour of duty, ironically in the gym. And I say it ironically because I transitioned from the military into being one of the top fitness models in the world. So traveled to a ton of different countries, Australia, Europe, Germany, UK, bunch of different ones. Worked with Under Armour, Nike, 50 plus magazine covers, and ended up growing my social media channels to over 4.2 million followers across social media. So I started to quickly, as like an early influencer, back in 2012, before Facebook even had ads. We were utilizing like different companies, like, I don't know, Shreds was one of the first ones. I'm sure several people have heard of Shreds, a supplement brand. I was still in one of their first ever athletes. And when Arvin was still out of his basement working. Arvin's a good friend of mine, still is. He was actually at my mastermind 2 weeks ago, and we got to hang out. And this is his 2nd time coming down for that event. And what's really cool is like what I was, as an early adapter, you get to look at like the psychology of different brands from an influencer standpoint, and also now as a brand owner. And what I really liked was like, look, if companies are willing to pay me, $15,000, $20,000 a month, what is that yielded return for them, right? What is that we call like ROAS or ROI? What does that look like on their side? And so after consistently getting contract update with the same companies, it became where I was looking at things different. I looked at things from an overall objective of how long can this sustain? And I wanted to look at what does that liability look like? Most people don't think about that. Like I started my company, Redline Steel, and I'll go into that in a minute. But I was looking at, I started Redline at 26. So 26 years old. As a fitness model, when I got out of the military after getting blown up at 23, I was looking at like, all right, what happens if I get in a car accident, mess my face up? What does that look like? Nobody's going to want to put me on the cover with like a fucked up face. So, people are, I was always looking at the positive, but also like realist. So balancing the two. So I ended up wanting to transition out of fitness modeling because for me, it wasn't like, it should be a catalyst. What are you trying to do today that can build that ultimate vision? What wakes you up in the morning? And if you lose that inner peace, that inner calling where you're like, what can I do to really move the needle? Then you don't have, I call it 3 Ds: distance, direction, distractions. Like you've got to have all 3 of those in order to really obtain like a substantial goal. And I started the company Redline Steel back in 2016. I didn't know anything about manufacturing, nothing about fabrication, but I saw a market opportunity. You drive around neighborhoods all across the nation, and there's signs on people's front doors. And my thought was, where are they getting these signs, right? So think about it. Like, so I went on Google. I went and I couldn't find anybody on paid placements, right? So I knew the market, there was a massive market opportunity that was not tapped into. And this happens all the time with like blue ocean market strategies. If you're looking at something from what is a pain point that other people are trying to find and then solve it for them. So like, I know for me, I wanted to buy a piece from my son, which is what sparked the idea. So I was working out at the gym with, he's just became a brigadier general, but he had a piece done for his son. And he was a baseball player. He was swinging a bat like this, and he had his son's name engraved in it. And it was really badass. Like, and so I wanted to just buy a piece for my son, but I always get like RFQs. I go and look at other people. What can I do to make sure I'm getting a good deal? Maybe there's somebody else that can make really cool designs. And that's where it kind of like tripled into, all right, I can't find anything. This is a big market opportunity. If I want it and I'm having a hard time, other people are having the same issue. So it started off where I wanted to be a business partner with this guy that made this metal sign swinging a bat. Transitioned into where I did consulting with him. And I consulted with him for about 4 months until I made him a business offer. And don't judge me when I say this. I guarantee you a lot of people are going to just like be like, all right, this guy. I'm that guy that came in and said, look, I want 51% of your company, but here's a hard but. I will not take a distribution or salary for 12 months. I'll guarantee growth of 6 times revenue of what you did last fiscal year. And if it will require new assets, I'll finance them 100%, 0% interest to the company. But I'll own the assets, amortize it through another corporation, and that'll basically just put a lien on this equipment that I purchase, and I'll finance the growth. So I believed in myself that much to say, I'm willing to do all of these things, not take a salary or distribution. Most people aren't willing to do that. I am. If I'm willing to invest my own money into something that I believe, but I'm going to own it, because worst case scenario, it's an asset. I can sell it and make at least 50, 60% of my money back, right? So I'm lowering the liability side. And then the third thing was, if I'll finance 0% to the business, but if I don't do all of those things in 12 months, I told him I'll give you back your company 100%. And if I bought any assets, I would just take them with me. That simple. He agreed. And the day we were supposed to sign at my attorney's office, he backed out. And it lit a fire internally. You got to think, like, the business plan shifted just like that. This is a guy that already had a pre-existing business that had equipment. He knew manufacturing. He knew how to make parts. I didn't know shit about any of that stuff. What I knew was I saw a market opportunity. I believed in myself enough to know that this can scale. So essentially I told him, look, if you're not here within the next hour, I'm going to be your competitor. He said, well, I wish you the best of luck. And so it lit an internal fire immediately. And I said internally, like, I'm not going to say shit back to him, but this guy's going to, I want to make sure that he knows he made the biggest mistake. And since then, like, he's a great guy, but that's just the type of inner fire, right? That Dragon Ball Z type of, that should build up where that is going to be your propelling component. Like, I don't have to say anything, just keep watching, right? Or just go and Google what's happening, right? That's the type of clarity that I had. And it started forming into a bigger vision. And so the vision for me, I started documenting, guys, like literally 5,000 square feet, a plasma table, and a homemade kitchen oven for powder coating, where you have to put like literally like an oven, hot rolled steel, welded together, 24-inch pieces. You had to take the part out, put it back in, heat rises, so you had to flip the piece over. Like, humble beginnings. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So, and I still don't. Manufacturing wise, I just hire really smart people. So I think, like, when you can believe in yourself and that vision for what it can create, harness some type of energy, whether it's from the dark side or however you want to harness it, make that a driving component. Where, look, I don't know anything about this, but I'm not afraid to tackle it head on. And that kind of brings us to those 3 Ds that I initially brought up. Now I know there's a vision there, right? I want to be, at this point, I want to be the largest customized steel manufacturer in the nation. I know what that vision is. The vision that I've been prophesying since inception of my company is this is going to be $1 billion brand. I wanted to, and I started documenting it. Guys, like I believed in this so much that I've been documenting on because I want to have a Netflix original. My intent is that I want to be the first billionaire that documented the entire journey since the inception of a concept to reality stage, from concept to exit. And then what does that look like, right? So documenting the entire thing, that takes a lot of vulnerability. It takes a lot of I guess forethought on where do I want to take this and why am I even doing this to begin with, right? And so one of the mistakes that I made along the way was I started a supplement company, which isn't necessarily like a mistake. It made sense. So 2016, January, I started the company Redline Steel. Like 5 months later, 6 months later, I started Integrity Driven Nutrition. Some of y'all may or may not know what that brand was. It was taking off as well. So we did over $1 million in revenue within about 6 months. And it had some market opportunity, had legs, but at the same time, it wasn't like a blue ocean. This isn't like there's only so many first form companies. Redcon's taking off, especially on the B2B side and the distribution outlets. I really was distracted by what the end goal was. And I became too involved with too many things based on the time, effort, energy, reward. What does that look like for you? And I was distracted. So the needle wasn't moving 100%. I think a lot of us get into that, like wave your hand if you agree with this statement that I'm about to say. Like sometimes you get overwhelmed with too many opportunities that the needle never moves, right? So I know that happens so much. And so a lot of times you'll see people posting about like, the more you say no, it's also numerous opportunities as an acronym, no, numerous opportunities, because it's also like, it's now what you are focused on initially can get your attention. So what I would suggest to everyone is like, whatever it is that's your big vision, what is that goal? Goal set, that's step one. The second thing is to make sure if it requires a lot of your personal time, attention, that you're not distracted by shit that is not going to move the needle. I'm not smart at manufacturing, fabrication, so I don't try to be. I hire people that's a lot smarter than me. At the same time, I can I can look at parts, like we make this. I could flip over a part and know exactly if there's an issue from a QC standpoint. I want to know, hey, there's I feel beveled edges. This has to do with center nozzle alignments on the laser. I can do powder coat tests on. There's a lot of things that I have to know if you're being bullshit or not. So I want to be good, but I don't need to be doing that on a day-to-day basis, right? I need to know every facet of my organization. Doesn't mean I have to do it myself. So I think it's just knowing exactly what your zone of genius is, and then finding people around you. And it's going to take you doing a hell of a lot at the beginning, but the bigger that you continuously scale and grow your brand. We've got over 100 employees now. We've generated well over $100 million in revenue, 150,000 square feet. We've shipped over 6 million products as a business. And, it's taken years to build the infrastructure. But I would say with certainty, knowing distance, direction, and no distractions. Horse blinders are on because I'm focused on what's ahead. And I'll turn down 95%. I think this podcast, we were looking at doing this last year, I think. So I mean, it is, timing is extremely relevant. Time becomes a big commodity and a currency for you. Invest it into not just from a monetary standpoint, but passion. Like I'm big on that. Like, what are you passionate about? Because for me, it's not just making money. It's a component, but at the same time, what is your inner peace? What wakes you up in the morning or makes you go to bed earlier so that you can be 100%? Like this year in particular, I prophesied as the year of foundation. I wrote a 13-page synopsis on internal marketing and internal infrastructure. Both have to be balanced in order for the company to grow and scale. Because it's a year of foundation, that's a lot back on me. I have not had one sip of alcohol for the entire year, because this year, having that discipline to know that it can be a distraction from what I'm trying to accomplish this year. I'm setting the stage, setting the precedent for this year to be monumental, to be massive, where we can build the largest skyscraper in the home decor industry. And that takes with that type of mindset to not be distracted by anything, even if it's an inside source, right? Not outside of other people, but it could also be you as an individual.
That's awesome. Your success is great. I love it. And I guess one thing I would ask you is, coming from literally being blown up, like you said, and at 23 in the military, like, how did you get out of that and get up and end up where you're at right now? Because that sounds like a pretty dark time. How did you take on resilience and just push forward and persevere? I
would say for me, I'm very disciplined. And that's kind of some of the issues with anybody that's prior military, is they become kind of, or if you've been in prison for more than 12 months, like you become routined to the sense of, what do you eat? What do you drink? Where do you show up? Right time, right place, right uniform. It becomes very systematic. And like, I think the military, for me, because I served 7 years, I progressed very, very fast. I made staff sergeant in 6 years. Went to school always at least 2 ranks ahead. So I went to PLDC as a specialist. I went to BNOC. I didn't need that until I was at E6 to go to E7. So I'm always looking ahead. Being blown up kind of changed the trajectory, but I think keeping busy and mentally just being in a state where I transitioned and turned something from a negative to a positive. I got blown up in the gym, but the gym was also a passion. So it's kind of weird that I turned that into a career, but I'm against the grain on a lot of your traditional soldier with PTSD. I compartmentalize very well. I put it to the back of my mind, not think twice about it. And I think it helps because I'm very, very focused when I get involved with something like my company Redline, 0 distractions. This is what I'm doing. Fitness modeling, 0 distraction. Dude, I would go, this is one of the main things, how I grew so fast in fitness modeling. It's a joke in the industry because people don't take it seriously. I took it very seriously. When I went to the Olympia at Las Vegas, everybody's partying, going out. What am I doing? Yeah. I am shooting with the best photographers in the world. And, I would land 5, 6, 10 publication covers based on that weekend. I went there for business, not to even network unless it's going to bring me to another level. Like, because that's distractions. Like, so when you get tunnel focused, hardcore, like, then that's really what I think my strength is knowing whatever I put my mind to, I'm going to, whatever, against all odds, I'm going to come up, I'm going to win. So, I've considered like running for Senate. I've been approached by multiple people. The challenge that I have, and it's recording, so I'm probably not going to say it, but some of my challenges are, is it really a driving factor of the chase of getting it done and hitting that objective? When you're a true entrepreneur and you accomplish a goal, how much do you win when you actually like hit that threshold? When we hit 1 million orders on our website, it was 30 seconds on to the next one. And you know what? I didn't move from 1 million to 2 million. It was, okay, I want to hit 10 million, right? You skip all of that stuff and you're happy for 30 seconds and that's it. Buying my first Ferrari like 6, 7 years ago.
Entrepreneur instant gratification.
For 30 seconds. And then what? Right. So it never ends. And so some of the things are like, I would love to just go and do it, but is it really for the wrong reasons? I want to do shit that nobody else could normally do when you think about military, 3 tours, volunteered for everything, to running a business, to $1 billion exit, creating a private equity group, and then, maybe running for office, all of these different things. Maybe, sign with ICM to be in some movies, whatever it is that I want to do. When I go all in, it's all in 100%. So, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I remember when you were with Shreds. I didn't know the story behind your focus and your discipline, but if you were to look at you and like Devin and Joey and all those guys that were on there, there was a clear, like, you never saw, like, they got either caught up or you would see them doing other shit on the side. And like, you never saw that with you. So it makes more sense now. I have a question for you. Number one, I have 2 more questions that I think everyone will probably find beneficial. Number one, you're a very well-spoken, educated with your, like, the way you talk kind of guy. What are some of the things that you've done to get there? Obviously college and stuff like that, but what are some of the things that you find that are like key points for you and your routine, or whatever you want to call it, that are constantly getting you to absorb more information? How do you do that? And then also make you smarter in the way that you're talking and the things that you're doing. Because I've met a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of guys. We've had a lot of guys on here, and there's a very large scale of a difference between the way you present yourself and the way you talk and most of these other guys. Not saying they're not smart people, but your presentation and the way that you speak is on a level that is noticeably higher than most people. So what are some of the things that you do that allow you to keep growing like that? Because the way you talk, I know it's not like you got something going on.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Yeah.
So I'm actually a high school dropout. I went to college, but it wasn't for me. So I'm big on passion. I'm big on learning, but I don't read books. I know that's probably a lot of you guys read hundreds of books. I don't. I think they're boring. I do some Audible, but I don't even finish. So I've got ADHD. I would say Adderall has helped me tremendously. And that's probably like my joking habit of like how I'm so focused. It's hereditary. So, my son has it. I mean, but I think that being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, how you respond to that is how you're going to thrive, or you're not going to thrive. So like COVID, my business, we tripled our employment staff in a time that was just a lot of like unknowns, a lot of concerns. iOS 14, I'm sure a lot of people are having challenges. The best way to look at it is like, guys, like if it's a component for you and it's a challenge, think about everyone else that's also challenged with it. That's a market opportunity. So what can you do? So think outside of the box on, I guess, consolidating all of these stressors, and know that, is it across the board or is it just you? If it's just you, there's a bigger problem. If it's across the board, there's always answers. And remember, at the very beginning, I mentioned an acronym called NO. No is numerous opportunities. You approached it in the wrong manner. So, I think for me is just what was uncomfortable 4 years ago when I would pay an American Express bill and it would be $300,000. That was uncomfortable. I couldn't even, it's hard for me to fathom that. Now we'll spend that, in a couple of days, and it's not a big deal. And there's levels or variables internally that you kind of compartmentalize with. So I would say, put yourself in a situation that isn't comfortable for you and see how you react, right? So if you're afraid of heights, go skydive. And after you do it once, it's like, shit, that was fun. I could freaking do it. And that like mental preparedness of, if you're afraid to do something, force yourself to do it more, because it's going to help you. And in theory, like any type of setback is truly a setup for your future if you learn from it. So, a lot of people went through challenging times during COVID, or maybe they still are with inflation going through the roof, iOS 14 doing what it's doing. What I would say is it is a time for everyone to kind of have a structured plan. This would be my piece of advice financially. I would look at your fixed and variable costs. I want you to look at everything. If you're like a direct to consumer marketer, I would look at everything less market ad spend and less shipping cost, right? But I don't know what everybody's vertical is, this is how I do mine, and you can just kind of take it from there. So I take all of my fixed variable costs, rent, property tax, insurance. I'll take a 90-day run rate of my weekly payroll averaged. So I'll amortize it into a weekly period. So then I know per week or per month, this is what I'm averaging. As we're hyper growing, I'll compare quarter over quarter, right? And so as we're adding in new employees, it's easy to factor what those variables are. And this is what I would do. I would take 90 days less the shipping and marketing ad expenses, because those are very, very high variables. Put that into a savings escrow that you don't touch. That is your true zero. Then your working capital, your capital that's paying on a consistent basis, the bills, that's not credit cards, that's not floating net terms. That's literally like in the bank, that is your checkings account. And that would be an additional 90 days. Take that same figure that you put in savings, put that into working capital. When you're looking to make buying decisions or make a larger CapEx expenditure, predicate that based on what does those line items look like? What is your, because now if you ever get to that point, your true zero is at least 90 days. And in theory, your true zero is when it gets past 6 months of physical working capital. So your buying decisions are made based on 6 months and after. If I want to go buy a laser, I'm looking at, okay, are we maximizing time? That's the first thing, right? Time's a commodity. It's very precious. We have to maximize it before we look at efficiencies in other areas for CapEx. Besides that, make sure that I can afford everything else on a concurrent basis. Make those decisions based on the data. So I would say that's a big tip on the financial side, is just to know your numbers. Know what am I willing to, before you make major purchase decisions, what do you look like financially? And most people don't know what their operating expenses are fully factored into all of your software, all of your rent, insurance, property taxes, labor association costs, any other fee that's concurrent. It's every single month. These are more than likely going to happen. And if it's not the exact same, find a commonality, find that variable, and then amortize it over that 30-day period to get that average. Once you know that number, it's a lot easier to know.
You were talking about, you approach somebody with the investment opportunity of being 51%. I'm also working as an entrepreneur and getting up my business. And an angel investor offered to me 50-50, but nothing. Just I do all the work, and his contribution of the capital money, which I have calculated and figured is only going to be 2% of the value of this business in a 12-month time. He's wanting 50-50. I think, am I wrong in thinking that he must think that I'm a fool?
No, I think it's probably the opposite. I mean, if he's willing to invest that on the front end, I guess it's also like looking at like, why do you need him to begin with if it's only 2% of the front end? So if you believe in yourself enough to go and launch or start the company, knowing where it could be in 12 months, it seems like a very small risk to go and open a line of credit, get a credit card, borrow money from someone, and just start it without them. So I'm not a big fan of investors. What I would say, liquidity is a liability. And if you don't have it, learn to leverage with it or without it. So if it's going to take you a little bit longer, soft scale it, and maybe you can do it without someone, right? I mean, my line of work, it's expensive to get into right off the bat, right? For the most part, we were rigging some stuff up with kitchen ovens and doing some stuff that's like not normal, but it's expensive to go buy a laser. I mean, those are like $800,000 a piece. Powder coat equipment, you're talking millions of dollars of equipment. So certain things you can just bootstrap and soft scale Yeah, I would suggest not getting a partner too early stage if you really believe in what you're doing. I think that that could hurt you more than help you for sure.
I would like to ask you, where do you see yourself from 10 to 20 years from now? That's my first question. My second question is, do you feel like you accomplished everything, or do you still feel like you still need to accomplish something in life?
I'll start with the first one, I guess. 10 to 20 years from now, I already have roadmaps, right? So we'll exit Redline for over $1 billion. I want to create my own private equity group that focuses on a single vertical of avatar focus. So women 40 to 65 plus, Christian conservatives. So looking at buying or acquiring or building businesses, whether that's, it could be a software company that feeds the ecosystem. Unlike a lot of, let's just call someone like Mark Cuban, right, who's got companies in all kind of different areas of focus, avatars all over the place. Mine will be completely different. It'll focus holistically on one primary vertical. So then I can, as I'm acquiring customers from company A, it can feed the entire ecosystem to the left and to the right. So it's pretty unique. There's not a lot of people that focus to that single area of focus. But when you look at consumer buying behavior online, it's predominantly that demographic. Most women, they have disposable income and they're buying not only from themselves, but they're buying for other people. And they're also shopaholics. So they'll go online and just keep, I mean, my wife does it all the time. So it's a great demographic to align with vertically. And I think when you know exactly who your audience is, it's easy to target and speak to them directly. When your avatar is too broad, you don't really know who's in the room. So it's challenging to talk directly and they can fully comprehend, what it is that you're trying to not, and I wouldn't even say sell. I call it objectives. So an objective for me, let's just say email. I build hundreds of segmented email flows based on consumer logic. What have they purchased? What's their CLTV, customer lifetime value? I'm looking at historical collections of what they bought. I'm looking at have they opened? Have they clicked? And all of this logic is based on the consumer's behavior. And so, and this is the separator between, an 8-figure or 7-figure company to from an 8-figure company to a 9-figure company, is knowing the data, knowing who your avatar is, talking directly to them, and dynamically, basically it's like me talking to you, but I don't know who you are, but I know enough about you from a data standpoint to make you want to purchase. So I guess, Sam, to answer your question, 10 to 20 years, private equity group, multiple companies within that umbrella, and then a marketing firm where I'm hiring top talent around the world that's really overseeing everything within the shell corporations. The next question, do I ever feel accomplished? I would say no, there's still, I feel like there's a lot left that I haven't done. I am very focused because I know what that next chapter already looks like, so I'm not distracted by anything else. But the challenge that I'll run into long-term, and even I would say when I'm old and in a wheelchair, is I won't feel accomplished to the full extent. I would like to say this guy, this guy right here, let me grab it so you can see it. He's one of my biggest influences, Nick Saban. So Alabama football coach, right? So Nick Saban, I call it the Saban mentality. It doesn't matter if you're up by 100, you missed a field goal, you missed the tackle. We have a lot of work to do. And having that mindset, you're never fully happy. You're never content. I'm not going to go to that extreme of saying you're never happy. I'm happy because I'm chasing my passion. And the passion isn't necessarily the bottom line of a monetary. I'm investing into the future. I'm building from concept to reality. And I wake up, swear to God, every day happy to go and do what we're doing. We're building. And I think that I personally thrive under pressure, just like we create steel. It's nitrogen chamber from the air that we're breathing. High pressure tanks, low pressure tanks, converted from oxygen to nitrogen makes this beautiful sheet of steel. Same thing with like diamonds, right? You talk about pressure hits, makes diamonds. That's Same concept though, but you're never truly like, you're always looking for that next thing, and you always level up. And it's usually not just oh, I hit 1 million orders. I want to hit 2 million or 1.5 million. Like it's literally 10x to the next thing. So hopefully that answers to a degree, Sam.
Your story, you started off talking something about the 3 Bs.
3 Ds: distance, direction, distractions.
3 Ds.
Yes, sir.
That's what made it. Okay, and could you talk a little bit about those 3 Ds, how you kind of formulated those 3 Ds? And also, I want to ask, my second question is about your family. At what point do you incorporate your family into what you're doing?
The first question is pretty easy, but the second one, there's no balance really, truly, of entrepreneurship with family. I mean, there's just no such thing. Years of growth, years of like constantly pouring into. I look at like a newborn business as a newborn baby. Like it's literally going to. You can't take off on the weekends because you can't do that with a baby. Like it needs to be nurtured all the time. And it's going to take a lot of due diligence. It's a big commitment. And are you willing to make that commitment? So I want to answer your first question, and I'm going to draw a graph for you. And this is extremely helpful. It may be reversed for the camera, but give me 1 second and this will all make a lot of sense. So this is my graph that I make mentally based on any decisions that I make. That is what I would consider macro, being outside of 12 months. Or it could be to the point of, should I go and speak at this mastermind? What does that really look like? Is it going to move the needle? Does it make sense? So here it is right here. This is the graph. So it's an X and Y axis. So you can see, and feel free to screenshot it, guys, if you want. This is like time. Let's see. Time is on the X and Y axis. Effort, stress is on the high on the X axis. Y is reward. And so anything that, from a decision standpoint, if it falls into this category right here, which is like, is it high stress and the reward's less than 5? It's not worth my time, right? So looking at every decision based around that, knowing the objective of what I want to accomplish from a macro standpoint. 12 months, is it worth the time, effort, energy, reward? And the reward doesn't have to be financial. It could be passion. I genuinely want to do this, so it's worth doing. Or is it a distraction from everything else? Is the reward high enough to offset the stress and the time commitment to you to make sure that it's going to move the needle? Which brings you to those 3 Ds, which I'll write down: distance, direction, and then the last one is the biggest one because it happens to everyone, and that's just distractions, aka opportunities, but they're not opportunities. They're distractions from your long-term goals. So, right. So this is essentially what I look at, and that's, everything's baseline on 5 out of 5. And if it's less than that, then it's either I'm not going to do it personally and I'll assign somebody else to do it, or it's just, we don't do it at all. So that's kind of what but you have to know, what is that big vision? Where do you want it to go? Is it reasonable? And it may not be reasonable to you. I'm sorry, it may not be reasonable to your mom, everyone else. Like when I say 5,000 square feet, literally videoing, saying this can be $1 billion company, everybody's probably laughing at me. When I left Shreds to open a steel decor company, everybody was probably like, what the hell is he doing? Guarantee you they thought that. I saw the opportunity, and that's all that mattered. And I mentally had the discipline to counteract like anybody. And I didn't have to say it. I've always been extremely respectful. I don't like confrontations. I don't like drama. I don't like bullshit. Like I'm literally like a hermit. I'll focus on my stuff. Everything else, it's not even worth commenting back. Like if you look at my Instagram, I haven't posted, like you could see from one screen, 2020. Like I don't even, because it's right now it's a distraction from what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm building my brand for something much larger. Now, I've just recently hired somebody, Digital Jeff. He's incredible. He worked with Gerard Adams, for those who don't know him. Leaders create leaders. And so he moved down here from Texas to help take over my account and to help on that side. But that takes investing into somebody else to move that for me, because that takes up very minimal of my time, and the reward's going to be much higher. But I'm just hiring someone else to do it. So,
is there any things in particular that you do to block out all the noise, and just when you're trying to get something accomplished, whether it's something with one of your businesses or whatever the case may be, is there anything in particular that you do to just block out all the noise and make sure you've got your blinders on and staying focused and you're not getting distracted by all this outside stuff?
Yeah, great question. So yes, it is like, so I would say what we've done over the past 3 years, and we're hyper growth, right? I mean, I started the company 5.5 years ago, and we've produced over 6 million products as a business that we've sold. So it takes a lot of like stupid hours, insane hours to get it to where it is. I've got my calendar is managed by someone else. I don't manage the calendar, and it's a constant reminder for what needs to be done. So my executive assistant helps manage and facilitate that. The EOS system is something that I would recommend. And that's going to help you like put the right people in the right seats. It's going to look at like a cadence of, there's a structure every Monday at 3 p.m. I've got a key leader management meeting. Mondays at 6 p.m. I have somebody that comes to do my hair they cut my hair at Redline. Everything is structured to the point where I know, not even looking at my calendar, my primaries, and then everything else from meetings that aren't traditional are associated through a calendar. I'll have notes of, like I've got a Word doc, and I'll look at, these are my 3 to 5 priorities for the day. And these are like, by the time I leave, I have to get these done 100%. These are my priorities that I'm putting on myself. Everything else is just bonuses if I get it done. And I always try to move the needle. So my minimum is, most people's like, if they got that done in a week, they would be good to go. But I manage my own expectations extremely hard. And I also wake up very regimented, very routine. You've probably seen some of my posts at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm not normal. I wouldn't recommend this for a lot of people. But when your body can be trained, your mind can be trained. Saturdays and Sundays, your body doesn't know, so don't take off. Like you can literally systematize everything that you do to train your mindset, where you beat your alarm clock 99% of the time. And I don't have to be at work at this time, but when I think that you know that you're in the right place, doing the right things. I believe in like law of attraction. I believe in energy. I think, if you're stressed about debt, more debt is going to come. If you're grateful and you live in a state of greatness, more incredible stuff's going to happen and be like bestowed upon you. I believe that. Like I genuinely do. And so, I think for me, structure is very important, extremely, but I'm an extremist when it comes to that. Like very, very strict scheduling. I know Alex, like getting all of this scheduled to this point was routine. It was pre-planned months in advance. And you kind of have to have that type of discipline internally and then hold that same standard with your team.
So Colin, when it comes to your schedule, right? Because I tell these guys this all the time when I'm working with them. I'm like, if it's not in the calendar, it's not real. And if you want to have a routine, you want to wake up at 4:30, you go to the gym, you want to have dinner with your wife, like it's got to be in the calendar, right? So with that, it's very effective, but it can also cause you to get extremely anal and obsessive about the calendar, and people around you sometimes don't get it, and it can cause anxiety or problems. Have you ever had to deal with that? And if you do, how do you manage that?
I would say if it becomes a problem, it shouldn't be a part of your life, no matter who it is. So if it's a big distraction and it's now, I mean, I have to find time. I'm very fortunate. Like my wife has never once complained about me working the hours. And, I do everything that I can to support her and our children, private school, bought her a Bentley, like anything that I can do and she doesn't care. She doesn't want that stuff. If we lived in a double wide trailer, she would be fine. I'm very fortunate. Most people say, Colin, or she's lucky to have you, but I think it's the opposite. And so I think, but to anybody else, if they have an issue with it, I would they don't need to be a part of your life because it is a distraction long term. So if they can't understand or comprehend it, really analyze, like, is it worth, like, family, friends, neighbors, I don't give a shit. Like, this is a distraction. Like, I don't like, but I'm also an extremist. Don't take my advice 100% face value, but like, I'll cut off people real quick and say, like, I can have time maybe next year. Fourth quarter is about to be here. I don't travel. So it's pretty extremes, but I mean, we're looking fourth quarter. I want to document $1 million in a single day, and show the ecosystem of how it's built and put it on YouTube. But it takes that type of focus and it takes months of pre-planning, to build the type of ecosystem, the wireframing around that. So
here's a good question. How did you end up meeting your wife and having kids if you're so diligent and focused on what you're doing? Because that could be difficult too. Because I'm kind of seeing someone around, but I'm very diligent about my time too. And it's hard to make time for that, to get into a position where you can actually meet a partner that you can get to come in your life and even see if they can roll with you.
Right. Yeah. No, so I met her at a music video. So we did a music video together, and she wasn't a model. She wasn't an actor. Her brother was in the band. The band was raising money for Wounded Warrior Project. And I typically don't do anything for free unless it's charity driven or nonprofit driven. So this one, I just happened, I liked the cause and wanted to support it. So met her there. She was actually my wife in the video, and we were both dating different people at the time. And then she reached out to me on Twitter, and once she found out I was single, and then we ended up going on a date, and she never left. And we were married 6 months later. And yeah, that was 6 years ago.
Soulmate right there. Just walked right in. It was like, okay, this is easy. It works. Let's go.
And for me, like, I love not being distracted by being single, because it's a very hard challenge to balance. There's a lot of distractions, honestly. Like, because I know when I've been married twice before this, they both cheated on me when I was in the military. It's when I was single for a small period of time before I met my wife and started dating, like, it was literally like 4 or 5 days a week downtown with the boys, like whatever. I had money, had cars. But there was no inner peace. Like, I didn't feel complete, but I never just stopped. It's like, what else am I going to do? Because I didn't have like a clear driven path of like, man, this is going to be a distraction from tomorrow. Being fitness model, like, shit. I mean, I get paid to post a selfie, and that's it. Like, I don't need to, there's really no super reason to not do that. So, but now being married, it's the best thing ever, making sure that I'm not distracted. So
what keeps you focused, man? Because that's very hard for me.
So I'm a big advocate on winning the day. I look at win the day to win the year. And that's kind of my mentality, is that Nick Saban mentality we were talking about is, if I don't win the day, I wake up tomorrow knowing that I have to offset anything that I did not hit. KPIs on whether that's outgoing orders, incoming from a market ad spend to top line revenue perspective, product development, all of these different scopes. Did we win that day in all of these different facets? If we didn't, there's accountability, but it starts with me. Did I not clearly communicate to my team that I needed it done by this deadline? I'm an extremist on accountability, but also a rewards standpoint as well. But I think objectively, to answer your question, what keeps me constantly going, not distracted, is entrepreneurship in this space is like, it's never ending. Like it's, for me, it's like November, I started selling t-shirts. I've sold, no shit, like we're sourcing different suppliers, over 300,000 of this exact same design, this exact same color. So,
wow.
and I didn't start selling t-shirts until November of this past year. So, you know, most people think, oh, Redline Steel, what does that got to do with the t-shirt? But like there's branding, and this is like a top of funnel play, but I mean, there's my logo is everywhere. So, you know, it's never ending from the standpoint of I can create from concept to reality something that is never ending. And so that's what I really like about this in particular, is because we manufacture, we produce products, the product development. I can think of a concept and it can be on my desk within 2 hours. So yeah, it did save faith.
Okay.
Somebody asked in the shirt.
If I was going in with somebody on the business and they're bringing in just as much capital as I am, but my worry is I know this person and I don't think they'll put in as much work as me, as like hands-on, you know? So if like one person was going to take a job, and even though we both put the same amount of money in, but one's out there in the field doing the work, how would you kind of write that into the agreement? Like, hey, or what percentage would you say, hey, extra goes to that job or to that person, whoever's taken over, you know what I mean? So
have
that
you
way
already
it's still like,
this? Is it already like
I have
launched?
not. I have not. It's with my cousin, and it's a pretty good amount of capital. So we're trying not to, but you know, it could be good or bad. So that's why I want everything in writing and you know, everything legit. You know, so
Yeah.
and I wanted to make sure that was clear before I get started.
I personally, just hearing that, like, I would never recommend getting involved with somebody if you already have those predications that this isn't going to be a fair balance of time, effort, energy, reward. What does that look like for you? You're holding all of the weight. He's getting also the upside, especially if the contributions on the front end are the same, the liabilities are the same. I wouldn't want to be in business with anybody, regardless of capital, based on that type of relationship. Like being involved with as a partnership level, it takes a big commitment. And if that person is not 100% on board to do whatever it takes, literally whatever it takes, put in the hours, work the weekends if it's needed, you know, that is not a good person to partner with, especially on the front end. If you're trying to raise, like this is like infancy stages of business, when you get to certain thresholds or, you know, and you have to raise capital and it's just necessary, then, you know, you could structure deals based on phantom equity. There's a lot of different types of groups you can go and look with. I would always look at strategic though, like 2-3 years from now. And then on the front end, ask the hard questions, clearly communicate, like, what is it that you're going to do on a day-to-day basis, and manage expectations from the beginning. This is my role. And, you know, also like ensuring that, what does that exit look like? I don't have business partners. If I did, I would have the very challenging conversations at the very beginning, because if you have a business, the intent should be at some point to exit. If you're not building it to exit and you just want financial freedom, which is fine, don't look at getting somebody that's going to hold you back. And so if you're not looking at both of those things, it's a deterrent and it's only going to hold you back long term. I would not go in business with him. Hopefully that answers your question.
As far as your mindset, what are the things you do to keep expanding on that? And what part of your service in the military as a military policeman, that some of those good qualities that you carried over into your business right now, you know, like the warrior ethos and different things like that, do you reflect on any things like that over?
So I would say I'm really big on like focusing on your zone of genius. So my zone of genius is best served in a certain capacity. And I would say a lot of people challenge the concept because of ego, and mine's the opposite. Mine's what's in the best business, what's in the best interest of the business. That's all that matters at the end of the day. So I eventually want to step down as the CEO and just be kind of like, Wozniak and Jobs, right? So I would be Steve Jobs from a standpoint of vision, concept to reality, the creative mind thinking, segmentation of the data, knowing the consumer, and then focusing the business, the title, everything else. Somebody else can have that. So I think that is like knowing where my focus should be because it's best for business has definitely been a big component because I know what I can contribute. And it goes down to that time, effort, energy, reward, this gantry chart. Like if I'm out there in the manufacturing plant, now I am not above it. I swear to God, I would go out there, hang parts, and I've done it. I would still do that. But I think there's a time and a place for it. But I think from my time in the military, learning from leaders that I did not care about because of their leadership skill set was a big driving component. I like to lead from the front. I like to make sure that my leaders know that they're not above it as well. So, we'll do a lot of things just to showcase. I'll literally walk around, big trash bag, take it out of employees' offices for them. And it's not a routine basis, but I want them to know I got you, and so those little bitty things like that goes a long ways. They see me doing that and it's not like every day I'm doing this shit. So, and then I'm also like on the opposite side, I don't believe in blanket awards. Never been a component of that. So if somebody hears you're doing great from me, they legitimately are doing great. If I'm paying you to do your job, why should I thank you for doing your job when that is your job? I'm paying you to do that. I would say the next thing that's like really, really big, 5 Love Languages was a book that my father-in-law recommended. He's a pastor. And he recommended, and it's great for not only relationships, but building a management infrastructure to know how they respond. So whether that's, and there's certain things you can't do, right? Physical touch, but like words of affirmation. Some people need that attaboy. Some people need random acts of kindness, right? I bought someone a pair of shoes. They could afford it, but it's those little bitty random acts that go a lot further, and to know how they're going to respond. And if you've been around somebody for 3, 4 months, 5 months, you start to pick up on kind of these triggers. And so I'm really big personally on the psychology of people. I'm not trained. I never went to school for it, but I think I'm naturally gifted at it. So knowing how to respond, because I know how this person is from their love language standpoint, is a very easy way to either reward or the opposite. It's going to be an opposite spectrum from like a discipline standpoint. So, some people, but that I would say that's kind of both answers, I guess, to a degree. Yeah.
Guys, what up? It's your boy Mike Barron. Thank you for checking out the YouTube channel. Truly appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you forget, I'm gonna come to this computer right now and I'm gonna close you my damn self. Let's go. I'll see you at the top, y'all.